Hey everybody, it's Topwater Johnny, and in this video, I'll be talking about my top 5 topwater bass fishing lures for beginners. Let's check it out. Whoa, there we go. Yeah! Woo, holy cow, folks. Topwater Johnny here, man. This is what we came here for. Look at that. Get back here. Look at that right there. That's the kind of beast that we came here for. There we go. Woo! And that one hooked. Hey everybody, it's Topwater Johnny here. I want to welcome you to the next video. And in this video, I'll be talking about my 5 topwater bass fishing lures for beginners. And I'm really excited about this series because I've had people over the course of the year talk to me about different topwater lures, different situations. And so what I decided to do was on my Thursday video releases to do a top 5 based on certain situations and circumstances so I could share with everybody which lures I would use in those situations here, because I pretty much fish topwater lures or surface baits or weight baits year round. So that's pretty much all I do on this channel. So I've had a chance to fish in so many scenarios and circumstances and catch bass on topwater that I thought this would be a great series to release on Thursday. So Monday would always be videos of me bass fishing with new topwater lures, but then Thursday would be my top 5 lures I would use for a certain situation. So what I want to do is go ahead and get started right now with my top 5 bass fishing lures for beginners. So let's get started.
5.
Okay, everybody, my number 5 of my top 5 topwater bass fishing lures for beginners. Number 5 is, believe it or not, a worm, but more specifically, a big bite worm, and it's also what's called a squirrel tail worm. Now, what I want to do is I want to show it to you here. This particular worm is very unique when it comes to the idea of topwater here. When I first started fishing, I started fishing with this particular worm, and this is when I discovered that the bass would hit topwater with the worm right here. And as you notice, this particular worm is thick at the top, has a slim body right here, and has a bulbous tail right here. So when I would Texas rig this particular one right here, I would Texas rig it so it's weedless. I would run it across grass, lily pads, lay downs, things where the bass had to look up to see it, and they would key on this bulbous tail right here. I'll show it to you in another version right here. That right there was the watermelon, and this right here is the actual green pumpkin right here. And I would actually put this worm and I would Texas rig it. It's thin right here. This bulbous tail would get noticed, and this is really what they were keying on and they were hitting right here. So as a beginner, I would say definitely when you're fishing in those kind of areas, to have a worm as a beginner, this will get you used to how to fish topwater when you're first starting out, because you start out with this worm here. The worm can go across the top and they'll strike it. If it falls through, they'll strike it as well. But your goal is to run it, get used to running it across surfaces and allowing it just to drip down a little bit, then pull it back up again. Other part of that is, and I'll show you right here, if you didn't know, this is what's called Texas rigging right here. So I would always rig it up so it was a weedless presentation right here. I was using Gamakatsu hooks here, number 1s, 1/0 and 2/0. Well, number 1s and number 2s, 1/0, 2/0. So they weren't the very big ones. I would use those as well. And this is what I had started off with. So I just wanted to share with everybody that when you first start topwater fishing, you got to make sure you use what you got. And as a beginner, you want a worm that's versatile. And so to me, this was one of the most versatile worms out there, where I could actually throw it, it would stay on top, and I always fished it weedless, so that in other words, weedless, and I never put any weight on it. So it always had an opportunity to flutter down or stay at the top if there was a grass line right there that I could run it across. So there you go. That is my number 5 of my top 5 bass fishing lures for beginners. All right.
4.
All right. My number 4 topwater lure for bass fishing for beginners would be an insect. That's right. If you're going to fish and you're starting out topwater, you want to have something that reflects what's around that water body that you're fishing. So one of them that I would recommend, of course, is the Gizmo right here. This is a lure that I have been fishing with. It's an insect. Or, and I'll show it to you right here. This right here is the Gizmo. And every beginner should have some type of insect that they are actually fishing with, because those bass are keying around bugs and insects at certain times of the year. There's certain times of the year when there are dragonflies out. There's certain times of the year when there are cicadas out. So you want to have some form of insect that you can throw during that time period so that you can trigger those hits, because they're looking up and they're going to key on things like this right here. And if you can't get the actual, as you can see right here, if you can't get the Gizmo, another one that I would recommend is the Rebel, and this is another one you can get, the Rebel Bumble Bug here. Look at this right here. This is actually another topwater lure right here that I have fished with before, and it's a little bitty insect right here. And if you're beginning out fishing, you need to have one of these in your tackle box, some type of insect, because you're going to get hits on those insects, because once again, they key on it and they are definitely going to chase after those insects. So that's another lure that I would definitely have in my toolbox if I was beginning my topwater experience. Plus this one right here has a little bill cup on it. So that means you can actually bring it down a little bit lower. You'll get like a little bit of 1 inch below the surface as well, but it always will rise back to the top again. And that's another lure that those bass will hit. And that's my number 4.
3.
All right, everybody. My number 3 is a frog. And my number 3 frog is, let me look, a Savage Gear 3D. So I want to show you right here that if I'm starting out as a beginner, you want to have yourself a frog here. I'm going to show you this frog here by Savage Gear. There are 2 different models. There's actually the popping frog, and then there's the more straighter frog right here. These are actually the 2 types of frogs that I would get as a beginner starting out. The first one here has the cup mouth, which means it pushes a lot of water right here. It's actually, you can see right here, big, strong, stout hooks. I've actually trimmed the tail down a little bit here to prevent short strikes, but this is really designed to go across those lily pads and those difficult plant areas where you're trying to get it through some difficult cover. But also you want to, with the popper, you're able to actually pop it and stop, and that actually pushes water, and that gets them to start looking up and noticing it right here. So this would be definitely one that I would have for sure. And if between the 2 that I had to choose, I would always go with the popper because it's a little bit more versatile, gives me a little bit more option. But if I have to get another one, I would also get the Savage Gear mouth frog right here, because this is the one with the straight mouth right here. This is great for walk the dog. It's narrow, so therefore, once again, the hooks are easily exposed right there, and it really does create a lot of really good walk the dog action. I always prefer to make sure I have a black frog, and then I like to always try to match the hatch. I have some white, but I've had more success on the more that look more like a frog pattern here, and black. These have been my more successful colors right here. So if you're starting out, those are the 2 type of frogs that I would have. Plus, these frogs aren't that expensive. They're 3D Savage Gear, so you can get them pretty much at Dick's Sporting Goods and around other places. So it really shouldn't cost you a lot of money for those. But the third one definitely is to have a frog of one of these styles, if not both. All right.
2.
All right. My number 2 top water bass fishing lure for beginners is a Whopper Plopper. You got that right, everybody. If you're going to be top water bass fishing and you're just starting out, you've got to have a lure that you can just throw out there and retrieve back, and it does a lot of the work. So one of them that I would definitely recommend is the Whopper Plopper. As you can see here, this is a 75. But then also, before that, I was fishing with the Whopper Plopper, the 90 right here as well. And these two, either style, either the 75 or the 90, are great for beginners because all you've got to do is cast it out there and reel it back in again. One of the things for you beginners out there, and those that already have experience with the plopper, is that as you throw it, you'll get used to the rhythm and cadence of it. So sometimes I reel it really fast, sometimes I slow it down, and I rank it, and I really reel it along slow and hard, so it goes, so it's sputtering. So I'll do it that sometimes I'll reel it back all the way straight as a straight retrieve. But then also, I'm also looking, and this for everybody out there, I'm always looking for if the fish are busting somewhere. If I see some water activity, fish are busting, chasing minnows, I throw over where they're actually busting at, and then I come through that strike area that they're in. Remember, when they bust up, they're going to circle back around to that area because what they're trying to do is they're trying to hit that fish, knock him unconscious potentially, then come back around and eat. But I want to make sure that I'm coming through there as they're circling back around after that hit. So one of the great ones that you can use as a beginner or as just a regular fisherman is the actual Whopper Plopper. This is mostly used in open water. So if you're fishing somewhere and it's open water, then that's where you would fish it at. Or you run it vertically along the bank sides so that the bass can come out and hit it sideways. So you're running it this way and the bass will come out and they're striking sideways. And when they do that, their mouths are coming in like this. So you have to allow them a moment to eat. And once you allow them a moment to eat, that allows those hooks that are swinging to lock in there and catch them. So this right here is these are my number two. So one of these styles for the beginners, either the actual 75 or the 90 would be ones that I would definitely have in my tackle box if I was starting out. All right.
1,
All right. Now, my number one of my top 5 top water bass fishing lures for beginners is a popper. That's right. I got this popper from Bass Pro Shop. It was actually a XTR, like I called it XTRA, but it was just a popper. See, when you're starting out bass fishing, it's important to have lures that will do some of the work for you when you first begin your top water experiences. And having a popper is something that everybody should have in their tackle box. Now, I have poppers that are $25, and I have a popper, and this popper right here that was $4. So poppers really, it depends on a lot of things when you come to a popper. It could be the quality of the hooks that you have on it, or it could be like Mega Bass, the way it's designed to create a certain effect. So poppers can range in price, but the key to a popper is the cup mouth. You want to make sure that whatever popper you select has a nice wide open mouth so that it can push water. And as a beginning top water fisherman, what you're trying to do with a popper is simply mimic a bait fish. That is really what you're trying to do. And you're trying to just always, I tend to pop down when I'm trying to make it really push water. But a lot of other people don't really realize that you can also keep your rod high and flick it back like that, and that will will actually make that popper move right and left that way and push water as well. So not only do you crank down, in other words, pop it with the reel actually rod down to make it pop, I have to keep the rod high. And I do it like this, like a whip almost, and that also makes it move left to right and push water as well. So every beginner, as well as every pro and everybody in between, has a popper in their box, because this right here is that lure that fits right at that moment. In other words, it fits certain situations, and that is when they're on top and they're chasing minnows, but then also it works great when they're sitting low in the water looking up, and you have a popper that comes along nice and slow, slowly chugging water. Make sure it has a rattle in it, because that will cause them to come up and investigate it. I always add a feather tail to my poppers because I want them to see something pulsating as it's on the pause. I pop it, then I let it pause, and this is pulsating. And that allows them to give that, if they were watching it, that's that little bit that takes them over the edge that instinctively causes them to strike at it. So what I would recommend for all my beginners out there that are trying to figure out what to put in their toolbox and in their fishing box is a popper. So that's my number one of my top 5 top water lures for beginners. All right. Okay, here are my top 5 top water bass fishing lures for beginners. My number 5 is the Squirrel Tail Worm by Big Bite Baits. My number 4 is the Gizmo Insect or Rebels Bumble Bug. My number 3 is the 3D Savage Gear Poppin' Frog or the straight frog right here. My number 2 is the River to Sea 90 or 75. And my final one is a popper. And this is an XTRA popper that I got from Bass Proshop that I put a feather tail on. So what you're looking here are my top 5 top water bass fishing lures for beginners. All right. Okay, everybody. Well, there you saw it. My top 5 top water bass fishing lures for beginners. And what I wanted to do was just share with you the 5 lures that I definitely would have in my tackle box if I was starting off doing top water fishing, because each one of those fits a certain scenario when you're first starting off fishing. And then once you get comfortable with those type of lures, then you get a little bit more specific to other circumstances and other situations. But those lures right there really cover a spectrum of water that you're going to be dealing with. Sometimes you need to fish slow. That's why you've got poppers, and that's why you got frogs. Sometimes you're in open water and you can fish a lot faster. That's why you've got the Whopper Ploppers. Sometimes that water is really murky and you really need something that calls them up. Therefore, you've got your insects that have rattles in them. You even got your Whopper Ploppers with rattles in them. And then finally, you're fishing in lily pads, heavy cover, where frogs are great, but then also that worm can slide through there once it's Texas rigged to your hook correctly. So there's a lot of use in all of those lures for somebody that's starting out, or maybe someone that's watching the video and thinking about new and creative ways to use it. I'm always looking for ways to do these better. This one right here was for my beginners. The next ones will be definitely a little bit more specific. The next one I'm going to do, just so everybody knows, it will be my top 5 top water bass fishing lures for the fall and what you have to do in the fall to catch them. Now, also what I want to do here is, just so that everybody knows what's going on here, is that all the lures that I just did my top 5 on, in the description box, there's a link that you can go over and you can actually watch individual videos of me fishing with those lures or doing lure reviews on them. So if you wanted to have a more in-depth look at those particular lures and in action, then just check in the description box and you'll be able to see videos that I've posted in the past where I've used those lures and caught fish, or I've used those lures and I've been talking about how you can catch fish with those. So I want to make sure everybody knows where that is if you want more details on them. I just wanted to give you my top 5 for this one here. Also, the other thing is my next video that's coming out on Monday, I want to make sure that everybody knows what that one is. And that lure, and this one right here is the lure, and it's kind of ironic that it would be a popper, but this one right here is the Swing Hot Pencil Popper. And what's so awesome about it is that the bottom here, if you can look you can look under here, this piece right here, this actually swings here. It actually rotates. So the bass never get leverage on the back here. This thing that the actual hook is attached to, it rotates. So it never allows the fish to lock in to throw the hook. So the video I'll be showing on Monday of next week will be on this top water lure right here. And it is a killer. I mean, I caught a lot of fish on it, and I even caught one in a very unique way that you've got to watch this video next Monday to see to believe. This is an awesome popper right here that I actually used it on. So I wanted to show this to everybody so that you can see it right now, and I'll give you all the details on it next week when I talk about that. Also, as always, want to make sure everybody stays up on the text alert team as always here, because I'm trying to grow that so that when I start releasing text alerts, I have a lot of people on there that are alerted. So if you haven't already joined the text alert team, probably look on the screen right here and you'll text the number 31996 and the message is Topwater. That'll put you on the list. Once again, it's 31996 and the message is Topwater. That will put you on my text alert, and I'll be able to give you alerts when I come out with new videos, but also more importantly, when I do my giveaways. See, my goal is to do my next giveaway at 4,000 subscribers. So that's what I'm really working toward right now, and I'm trying to build and I'm trying to grow, and so I'm doing all of that. So I need your help as always. Please like, subscribe to the channel, and I really do appreciate everyone's support. If you've got an idea for a top 5 topwater lure, whatever, please share it with me, because some people have already done that. So I'm going to add those into my list. So if you got one, please post it on there, give me a comment on it, and I'll add yours to it as well. So once again, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this journey. Thank all my subscribers. Thank everyone that's been watching me. And I want you to always remember that phrase. Keep your line tight, because when they hit that topwater lure, it's going to be a big bite. All right.